Welcome back to N2 the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I think that Batman's going to retire before the second movie comes out.
Dang! That hurts. I mean, there was another pushback. How far back are we going now for this one?
I think 27 is in the
Okay, all right.
So that'll be 5 years in between releases.
5 years. Robert Pattinson is how old now?
He's like 95 years old.
he's been 17 for a long time. So, dang. I do worry, like in the setup of those things, how well do they actually think these through? Where sure there might be contractual obligations, but there are physical limitations to what some people can do, and.
Right.
At some point, if you keep pushing back this movie, he's got to get other work.
Yep.
What happens if he gets hurt, knock on wood, or something happens where he is no longer the best viable actor? Like, is there a kill clause in these things? Where...
Well, I would imagine that there's a clause in his contract where he can't be in a movie that requires him to be doing physical things.
Do they have to pay him leading up to the making of the movie to keep that happening? Like, because I feel like that's restricting his work abilities. And
I just think it goes to physical things.
Okay,
like you can, if you look at Henry Cavill,
right?
He had to go back for the reshoots of Justice League while he was doing Mission Impossible,
right?
But that was a physical role. The only thing that Paramount said that he couldn't do was shave his mustache.
Because that was such an integral part of his character, was that mustache.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he could have grown it back, though. That's just how I felt. I think that if that was Paramount being...
they were being a little snooty on that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they were just, they had power and they used it.
They used it.
Which is a rare thing for them.
Well. Speaking of Paramount, perfect segue, sir. So right now they have a movie that is the #1 in the country in terms of its box office release against other movies, but it's not necessarily the rolling juggernaut that they thought it was.
Rolling.
Right?
Interesting.
Hey,
yes.
I'm just rolling with these puns here. Sonic 3. Now, Sonic as a character, the king of Sega. This is a game that you've played.
Yes.
Game that I played, even though I was much more of a Mario guy. But what I think is very interesting is that we got to this third installment of Sonic the Hedgehog. And considering how, like, I remember what the fan outcry was when they first premiered the teaser trailer for Sonic, and fans hated it.
Yep.
It was ugly. I think they even call it something like that, like Ugly Sonic or something like that.
Sure.
It's got some dark meme thing. But for a company like Paramount to have released this teaser piece, this first imagery, fans hate it, to have then like grown to a point where they've not only hit a trilogy, but they have an offshoot TV series on Paramount Plus. Is there something that other studios should pay attention to about the relationship between their creative ventures and what fans want?
I think within reason, yeah.
Okay.
But, it's like Chris Pratt being the voice of Mario.
Right.
People were like, he's not even Italian.
He's not.
And I'm like, why does that matter? And
Mario.
And the movie was fun.
Sure.
I didn't care who the voice was. I almost never care who the voice is.
That's interesting.
Because it's about how the character is portrayed.
Right.
And I don't feel that actors necessarily bring
like a signature of sorts.
Yeah,
that?
I mean, you could make the case for Darth Vader.
Okay. I don't think that we have ever had another Darth Vader. Have we had another Vader?
Not voice.
Yeah.
And James Earl Jones even signed over the rights to his.
So he can use his voice forever.
But if they put somebody else in that, if they allowed the actor who played him to continue to use his voice as well, I don't think that it would have mattered. But that does stand out. But if it was someone else's voice, it probably would have stood out.
Still could have worked.
Yeah,
I got you.
The thing that comes to mind with the fan outcry would be something that was local. Save the Crew.
Okay.
And for you soccer fans out there,
that's right,
or non-soccer fans, that is our local MLS team.
That's right.
The owner of the team was going to move them to Austin.
Right.
And they came out. The fans came out.
City showed up. Like, no.
And they're like, they created such a stir that they found other owners to take that team and give the old owners their own team in Austin. Now, you can say however that you want with that, nobody put up their money, but they have put up their money. They've shown up to the games and everything. But, the Save the Crew worked. I think that, the outcry for Sonic worked.
Absolutely. Because like you said, the fans showed up to watch that first movie as well. Like, it's not just that they were super loud on social media and online. They showed up at the theaters, and that movie did really well.
Yeah.
Because we were just looking at it like that. It came out weeks before the shutdown for COVID.
Right.
Huge deal.
Yeah.
Huge deal.
And, it made almost $320 million.
Yeah.
In a short period of time.
Right.
Because
of the shutdown.
Because of the shutdown.
So the idea is that potentially without the shutdown, this could have been another runaway.
It could have made probably $400 million.
Okay.
Which is still a lot for a movie that
$85 million?
$85 million.
Come on. That's huge. That's absolutely huge.
And if you look at the percentages could be skewed in a way that, because it's not necessarily a U.S. game.
Right.
You have essentially 47% domestic versus 53%, and it's usually closer to 60-40.
Got you.
40 being domestic.
Right.
And it could have done better overseas. So, it could have made $420 million, $425. But, the fact that it made that much money in that little time is significant.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's why the second one, though cost a little bit more, grossed a lot more?
Well, and you also had it showed up on whatever streaming. Right. And, people were stuck at home for a while.
Watching it.
Yeah, so.
Because they didn't have nothing else to do.
Yeah. Okay. So, they come back and they watch the second one.
Right.
And that one, made $400 million.
Yeah.
And it cost a little bit more.
Yeah.
It cost like $15 million more. But still, I look at the percentages, and it's high on the domestic side. It's 47% on the domestic,
huge.
And that's a thing that I think is really baffling to me, because I would have thought for sure that would have been more on the international.
Okay. Well, I do wonder, because the way Sonic has kind of permeated pop culture, where you've got multiple cartoons in addition to the games, right? And the cartoons definitely seem to have more of an American release than an international one. So though video games in most cases, have their roots in, Japanese culture or something like that, this one is very Americanized. And so it is more ours. And so we tend to show up a little bit more for it. Because I almost wonder if that's like the case with most like superhero stuff that's not necessarily global. Like Superman, I would say, is more global.
Yeah.
Maybe Spider-Man is a little bit more local because of New York and the presence of New York, but even he might be more global than not.
I think he is. I think that if you look at the grosses on the movies, I think that it's
Captain America. We'll use him. Maybe Cap might work. But
yeah, I mean, but the problem with all that is that like Captain America's an 80-year-old, and Spider-Man is what, like 65 almost,
something like that.
Yeah, and so you're looking at old. You'd have to get something closer to. I'd almost say Iron Man.
Okay, all right, I can see that. Yeah,
because even though Iron Man
is technically older than,
it's right around the same time as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
John Stewart. It's still Green Lantern,
but
still
Green
John
Lantern,
Stewart,
but still very
Guy
American,
Gardner,
very American.
I'm trying to think of what.
Yeah, I said it. I was like,
all these characters are so old.
They've been around long enough that they could have global appeal.
And almost, probably if you look at Shazam, though it's a much older character, I don't think that it had much appeal outside of the United States.
I can see. Okay, all right, yeah, because that's a really good one because Shazam came out same year as Captain America, 41. So I think that's a solid one. That's a solid one. But what's interesting again is that Sonic 3 has been out for just a couple of days, not too long. Just over a week? Is it 10 days at this point?
Yeah, it's 10 days.
10 days. And while it's performing better than a number of things that are also in the box office right now, it's still not making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that this is a far offshoot release date from what the other two were. So the first one came out in February, like Valentine's Day. The second one came out in April, but we're jumping to a Christmas release.
Right.
What is the logic behind that one?
I mean, if I'm Paramount, the logic is to get it out before the end of the year.
Okay.
I mean, but also, why would you go up against 3 other PG movies?
That's kind of like
I get that,
right there.
With Moana 2 and Wicked, that was November,
right?
But still,
they're still making a lot of money.
And then you had Mufasa 2,
right?
Mufasa 2,
Mufasa also,
coming out,
right?
Which I still don't understand when that movie was made.
I'm not gonna talk about
that. But yeah, why would everything else? The other two went up against more mature stuff,
right? So they virtually had nothing,
right,
to compete with.
And we're talking about PG movies,
right? Which
is not PG movies don't come out. G movies come out at 0 anymore.
Right.
There's barely any PG movies that come out, and you have 4 all at the same time.
Just right here,
right there.
Yeah. It was an interesting thing because the other ones. So, and that's the other thing I took note of. So we had 2020, 2022, 2024. So you're like, oh, it's every 2 years. But this one is so much later in 2024. Wouldn't it maybe have been better to just hold it till 2025? But you're thinking, for budgetary, maybe bonus reasons, they went ahead and pushed it? Because
I can't make heads or tails of Paramount because they've been mismanaged for the last decade.
I got you.
Easily.
I got you.
I mean, where's Star Trek 4? But
was
also,
that on the table? I didn't even remember that was.
Oh yeah, there's a script by Once Upon a Time in America.
Oh,
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, Quentin.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino.
No joke.
An R-rated version. There's also one where Kirk's dad comes back.
Really?
Yeah, and the budget wouldn't allow for that.
Hemsworth? What?
Yeah,
it was
Chris Hemsworth.
2 Chris's. Too much. Okay.
But and they've sunk so much money into the shows on Paramount Plus.
Wow.
Which is why you only 5 seasons of Discovery, and everyone's like, why didn't we get 7? Is it because it costs too much money?
Costs too much money. Okay. So do we think that they rush Sonic out so that they're not competing with Mission Impossible? Is that based on Mission Impossible's release date, which is in May, if I'm not mistaken, that this would have been too close to it? I have no idea what.
Well, why not once again February or April or March?
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is, if the movie's out there and it's good, people are going to go watch
They're
it.
going to see it.
Well, for the most part, there's some movies out there that
sometimes they miss. Sometimes, but that's
and some people would say, Fall Guy.
Okay.
Should have done better than it did, and I was like, I didn't.
What a great movie!
I didn't think it was a great movie. A lot of people think it's hilarious, and I'm just like, I don't find it funny.
No, it's a reference within a reference within a reference. I don't.
There have been a lot of movies that they're like, this should have done better than it did, and I'm like, I watched it. I didn't think it should.
I don't think so.
If you go back to Office Space, sure. I mean, I had people here telling me that you have to watch this movie, and I'm like, I didn't watch it till it was on cable.
Wow.
So
I mean, but that's also an era where there were a lot of good movies that came out, and so it was easier to miss a movie because there was a lot. Office Space is what, 1999, 2000, something like that.
Yeah,
that. There's that era of movies is kind of like the last golden age of every Friday. There's 2 or 3 great movies that were coming out. So. Yeah, that's kind of fair to miss that. It's not a singular event where a lot of these now, you've got like these one-offs that is like, oh snap, that was an amazing movie. Nobody showed up. Like,
you know what? We go back to the last Mission Impossible. That actually was a pretty good movie.
It was a really good
and
movie.
People didn't come to see it.
Nope, because I know I didn't see it till it was on TV. So,
and a lot of people will say it was because it said part 1.
Right. It's ridiculous.
And probably, and they changed the part 2 to
Dead Reckoning.
Yeah.
Or
the Last Reckoning.
The Last Reckoning. Sorry.
So the idea is that this is the last.
Right.
Which I don't believe that. Like if there's money to be
talks,
made,
you know what it is.
I think that if in 5-6 years, Tom Cruise wants to make another one, he'll get his walker out, whatever, and
no, he'll be the guy with the message. Like he's sending the messages to people.
And you know what? Maybe it needs to be something. Maybe this last movie will be where he hands it off to somebody and he takes a back seat to things.
Because we thought that was going to happen at least once before with Jeremy Renner and those guys, right?
Well, that happened with Jeremy Renner
and The Bourne Identity.
And that didn't go over very well, did it?
It didn't, because that was a Matt Damon vehicle. We love Matt Damon in that one, with all due respect. Okay, so last thing I want to chat about, you sent me this great article from Forbes that was talking about the cost of Andor and where it fits into the Disney Plus streaming shows that Star Wars as a franchise has put out. And it was surprising to me that Andor rated so low on the watch list, because like not a lot of people have turned out for it. Now, I'm just as guilty for not having finished it, which is totally my fault. I was getting into my own workflow, and Andor is one of those shows that I think requires more attention than absent-minded watching.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like, it's
absolutely.
not, you don't just play with your phone and that's on in the background. And that's one of the reasons why I could not watch it at the time, was because I was working and I couldn't do that. So, is that a red flag for the Star Wars franchise stuff, where making something that might be a little bit more grown up, intense, and complex is a bad thing? Like, what is the takeaway from this? That they should not have made this one because it cost so much?
Well, they shouldn't have spent $645 million on it.
That's crazy.
Is one thing.
Yeah.
That to me, I was like, the fact that they're spending like $200 million on these shows is a lot to me. But also, you know, people need to get paid.
Sure.
And I agree with that. But there's places where you can cut things.
Right.
There's not a lot of force in the show.
No.
And full disclosure, it's based off of a movie that neither one of us liked.
That's true. It's very, very true. Like, and I think I'm sorry, I have to say this. You gave such a great option for what they could do that I'm not almost like, I don't understand now why that is not the specific mandate that all of these shows have to do. Like, as a means of recouping the money, they have to do this. And it'd be such an interesting thing. Like, if you watch the show, cool, you get this one experience. But then if they take your approach, there's a brand new experience to it that you now can see, but there's a way for recouping money. And I'm going to let you tell the people what that is.
So if every 3 episodes is a movie, put it together as a movie and release it.
Like, it's
theatrically.
It's so stupidly smart. Like, it's like, oh, well, yeah.
And
why not do that?
They've proven over and over again that if you put movies out in the theater and they're good, they don't have to be great. If they're good, people will watch them over and over again on streaming.
Absolutely. So
we will call this Shawshank Redemption, a movie that people did not, that no one came out to see.
No.
They released that movie 4 or 5 times in that year, and Turner's like, we're just going to show this movie to you ad nauseum till you like it. And that's exactly what happened.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Because that is.
And there's some people that don't like the movie, and that's fine.
It's like
because
two people.
Yeah, more than that.
Right.
But you know, I think that if you have something, and like I said, I didn't like Rogue One.
Right.
I really liked Andor.
Yeah.
And I'm just as guilty as everybody else. When my friends were like, you need to watch this. And I sat down and watched the first episode, and I'm like, I was doing exactly what you were saying. I wasn't paying attention, and I'm like, I'm just gonna wait till they all come out when I can sit down
and just
watch it as I want to watch it. And I probably waited 6 months, and then I watched it, and I went through the whole thing because it was that good.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful show. And again, like that same thing is exactly why I have not gone back yet. But that is one of the few shows that I'm like, I will watch Andor at some point and just sit down and do it because it looked that good. It looked like it had that level of complexity that I like in storytelling. A lot of the stuff that I felt like Rogue One was missing, I feel is in Andor. So, yeah.
And the fact that as a TV show, it could lend itself to character development, which I felt was completely missing from Rogue One. And I get told, these people were going to die. I'm like, yeah, but don't you want me to care that they died?
Yes.
Because guess what? They didn't care that they died. When was I upset? I was upset when K2SO died.
That was it.
And that,
maybe the blind dude.
No, because he said, I'm one with the Force too many times. And I think that was one of the things that really bothered me about the first episode of Andor, or first season of Andor. You're like, no K2SO. I'm like, well, what was the point of me watching this?
I don't even want to watch this. I don't want to watch this. But then you watch it.
And then maybe that goes back to Alan Tudyk also, because he is
fantastic.
I don't think there's been anything that I've seen him in where I just go, why?
That's fair.
Because I even like him in Creature Commandos. It's just a stupid voice.
And but it's what you need. It's all you need. No, he's oddly amazing at everything.
Though I'll say that David Harbour is probably the best thing in Creature Commando. His Frankenstein is hilarious. It's so dumb. So dumb.
You just want to punch him. You do just want to punch him. That's a good one. I think that's definitely something that we got to talk about because I think the battle for the animation title right now between Creature Commandos and What If is very, very interesting, and we will talk about this next episode. But to end up this Star Wars thing, I think what you said is absolutely brilliant. And if Disney has 2 brain cells, they need to devote at least one of them to executing exactly that.
Well, I think they've made so many mistakes when it comes to Star Wars. I'm one of those people that are like, we're going to put out one movie a year. I'm like, do it.
Yeah.
But, we end up getting stuff that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Rogue One didn't. Yeah, Rogue One made $1 billion.
Made good money.
But you know what? It came off of a movie that made $2 billion.
So is
just
that
like
really good? Like
Episode 8,
right.
It made $1 billion. But once again, it came off of the first one that made $2 billion.
So,
and the only one that failed was Solo, which was one that I actually had. Well, one when they were like, we're going to tell the story of Han Solo. Why?
Why are we doing
that? Why are we doing this? Why are you putting out a movie with a different actor playing a character that we just saw?
Literally just saw.
And then they had all the problems with the directors, and they basically reshot the entire movie. And it was once again, it's one of those things where you're watching it and you're like, why are we having trains?
What's happening here? What is this?
But I thought it was okay.
Gotcha.
It's not my least favorite Star Wars.
No, that's Rogue One.
Actually, Episode 9 is my least favorite.
Is it least favorite? Okay.
It's got to be my least favorite Star Wars.
All right.
Because it didn't take what was handed to them in Episode 8 and go with it.
That's so true. They just went right back.
They went, oh my God, we need to apologize for everything. Like, no. Like, this wasn't a great sequel to the first one, but also it wasn't god-awful.
So this is a perfect juxtaposition where the fans for Sonic had their outcry and Paramount kind of fixes it.
Yeah.
And then the fans of 8 have their issue and they go, "Oh, we're so sorry. We're sorry. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you this."
Yeah.
And it's not better.
Yeah. So the mistake being made was, one, there was no writer's room.
Right.
And they went, we're going to let the director decide what to do.
Right.
Which, why is that a good idea? like I like Rian Johnson's work.
Yeah.
I don't like Episode 8. If it would have been a completely different, like, standalone movie,
sure,
maybe.
Got you.
And had different characters in it, yeah, maybe that's fine. And then to go back to JJ, which I like JJ.
JJ is nice, but at the same time,
he's never done very well on sequels.
That is true.
And going back to Mission Impossible,
Right.
he brought the franchise back with Mission
did.
Impossible 3.
Yes, he did.
And also Star Trek.
Hey.
But then again, he did the second one. Which
but
like,
he
it's
can-
not con.
he can-
It's not con. It's con.
It's con.
Yeah.
It's con-ish? No, it's con.
No, it's absolutely.
Yeah, it's absolutely
100%.
con. So J.J. Abrams can revitalize, but not continue. It's not his strong
Yeah,
suit.
no,
which is good.
Yeah.
Know thyself.
Yeah, lens flares. It wasn't even a thing to me until people were like, "Well, then lens flares." Blah blah. I'm like, okay, so
Yeah.
that's his thing.
That's his thing. Let it ride. I get it. That's a solid one. Guys, this is going to be our very first episode that premieres in the new year. So thank you guys for listening. We thoroughly appreciate your support, love. Continue sharing, subscribing, all that cool stuff. Tell all the people all the things. Comment below some of your hot takes on what we were talking about, whether or not you saw Sonic, whether or not you are a Sega Genesis fan. I'm just curious because I was definitely a Nintendo guy. Sega Genesis people were violent. Mortal Kombat says it all. Which one did you play? Did you do Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter?
Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
You know what? Though I did play Street Fighter when it was video, like
An arcade?
Arcade game.
Yeah, you just aged everything.
That's fine.
I love it. Thank you guys for tuning into the Chatterverse. I'm Victor Danders, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and my quarters on the table.
Hey!